Hi, Toby. Great to have you here. The Eventrepreneur, love it as well. I keep thinking I've topped this podcast with fun and quirky businesses. I've had like an aerial skills school, a bouncy castle company, a slime business. And then you come along and you have like not one, but like a whole medley of businesses. You've got the silent disco company, the cinema hire company, the karaoke hire company, and flash bands. And I'm really looking forward to hearing all about that. But let's rewind. I know a little bit about your story. I think that you started as a business owner quite young, and school played a part in it. And when I was at school, and I know that's the case for some people, not all, I kind of had the expectation of work hard, get some good grades, go to university, then get a job and work up some kind of ladder. I don't know whether that was the case for you. Did you have that kind of expectation?
In terms of school, I'd never had the expectation of. I tell you, when I was really young, I always wanted to be a pilot.
All right.
That was the one thing, and I still love flying now as a bit of a hobby, and I'll go out in a plane. But I always wanted to be a pilot, and then I learnt that it was 6 years at university.
And about 100 grand or
Yeah,
something.
the money and 6 years, and I thought I cannot waste 6 years of my life at university because I was already earning money at that point. So that was the dream to at some point become a pilot. But I was an entrepreneur. I liked earning money. I liked working and grafting.
What, even at school?
Even at school.
Right.
So at 14, 15, I was out doing children's parties. I hate the word clown, but I did wear some nice stripy socks. And I was doing kids' parties, sort of 4 and above, children's entertaining, balloons, magic, disco games.
Okay, and that, I mean, I guess you're just saying that kind of quite blasé, but, at 14, I'm talking to people that are in their 40s and they're still like working out how to make some money, and you were at 14 doing this. And
So my older brother, he was a children's entertainer while at uni. So he used to come home at the weekend, go out, and his name was brilliant. His name is Phil, and his stage name was Phil the Beat, which I just love. I think that's a brilliant name. Mine wasn't quite as good as that and didn't have the same ring. But he had a lot of friends. A good friend of mine, James Sinclair. I mean, he has a super successful podcast, super successful £40 million plus business. And one of his books is The Millionaire Clown. And he did exactly the same. So I sort of saw this group
yeah.
of entertainers. And I could see what they were earning for 2 hours doing a kids' party.
And I guess that's quite important in terms of learnings, is surrounding yourself with people that are
Yeah, definitely.
where you want to be.
And I always say, I've said this in other podcasts as well, I want to surround myself with people better than me.
Yeah.
Because my belief is, and I tell my daughter this, even at nearly 3 years old, you become the average of the 5 people you hang around with. So I don't want to be the best person in the room and go, I'm super successful, I've got this, I've got that. I want to be the least successful person in the room, that I'm learning from them, the knowledge I'm going to get. And I will be better learning from those sort of people. So I always say you become the average of the 5 people you hang around with. But I was seeing these entertainers going out, everyone has a birthday.
And another thing, again at 14, you've got to have a bit of confidence to kind of go in front. I know they're children, but you still have to have a bit of confidence of the value you're bringing. Did you just have that innately, or was it being surrounded by lots of siblings, or like,
There's lots of siblings. I've got a big family, so I'm one of 4. I would say I wasn't shy, but once you're in character, I'm in character. And once I walk through those doors of the hall, I'm in them party mode, and I go back in the car and listen to LBC at like 14, 15. I'm quite, and I'm not shy, but I wasn't as outgoing as some of the other entertainers who are all, I want to be centre of attention, that sort of thing. I was quite happy to go earn the money, get back in the car and drive to the next one. And it is the most sociable, I always call this, even DJs, the most social, unsociable job there is. Because you're around people all the time, especially at parties, there might be 100, 200 people there, but you're not socialising, you're there to work. But I never really had an issue with that. School was quite tough, and my way of dealing with that was, doing the tech stuff at shows, and so I always had an interest in like the tech stuff. And if there was a year 7 disco, I'd go, I'll do that, and I just enjoyed doing it. And I think even though I was children's entertaining, one of the first jobs that I got was in an under 18 nightclub local to where I lived. And it was quite a big nightclub, and they must have had like 80 people, something like that, each week. And I grew it really quickly to about 250 people. And I used to get 40 quid for a 5-hour set. And that was at 15 I was DJing there. Wow. So my dad used to drop me off, come back at like midnight, or 11 o'clock I think it was. And I turned around and said, look, 40 quid, 5 hours. I was like, I just want £100. We're bringing in like loads of people. They're all drinking Red Bulls, you know.
You could see that. You could see the commercials.
And I said, like, I think I'm worth 100 quid here for 5 hours. It's only 20 quid an hour. And they went, no, we'll only pay 40 quid. So I went, okay, I'll see you later. And I left there. And then that's when the children's parties ramped up. You know, at one point I was doing probably 10 a week. I had a man with a van pick me up from school or college. I remember his name was Pete. And nutcase driver. But he used to pick me up from school. I used to leave at 3 o'clock, jump in the van. He had all the equipment. And then I'd go to kids' parties.
And were your parents supportive of this as well? Or were they going, no, you need to study? Or what you're doing at the weekend? Or were they really supportive?
They were supportive.
Yeah.
I mean, my dad had his own business. He was second or third generation in the family business, and our offices were actually based within that family business for a period of time. And I was always out the 4 children because I did stuff for him. But the difference was like I felt retail was dying. It was a retail business. The turnover of what that shop was doing, I was doing within 2 years of doing kids' parties. Wow. So it was never something I wanted to pursue. He's since retired and we sold the business. But I think he was supportive because he'd sort of been there and done it. And I'm quite strong-willed. I was just like, I'm going to go do this. I'm earning money. And, you know, doing 10 parties a week or something at that time, 150, 200 quid a party at weekends, you know, at 16, 17, you're earning pretty decent money.
And what were you doing with the money? Were you saving it or spending it?
Early on, and I don't mind being open about these things, but, you know, I'm 18 at this point, earning, you know, a couple of grand a week at some points, and I like to party. You know, you want to go out and enjoy yourself. And I remember this was at like college time. I'd go out on a Thursday night, get home at 7 a.m. and go straight to college the next day, you know, as you do. But I used to have a lot of friends that liked the casino. And I would say it was a problem to a degree that I would have all this money on a Sunday night. I'd come home and you get into that. It's super addictive. And it was only when my accountant said to me, like a year later, he was like, I'm seeing all these cash withdrawals from an ATM. And you know the ATMs that like charge you the £1.95 if you take money. So it was like £51.95. And I said, oh, yeah, that's the casino. And he said, oh, do you want to know how much you've withdrawn? And I went, not really. And he told me the figure. And since then, I've never stepped back into a casino again. Literally from that day, never go in. I've been to Vegas once.
Yeah. You know your vulnerability there.
Well, I've got an addictive personality, whether that's business. You know, once you get stuck in, I get addicted to it, and I'm addicted to the companies that we run now. You know, I could work from home. I probably could go on a golf course half the week, but I love what I do, addicted to what I do. So, literally at that point, never stepped into a casino again. I thought, no, you've got to be sensible. But I was saving at the same time. It wasn't like I was blowing like $2,000 a week on a casino. But there was definitely a problem that needed to be addressed. And then saved up. I was DJing at that point, so transitioned into sort of
and
the DJ market.
It's again like it's just sort of throwing this out there, but like you've got to learn to DJ. You've got to buy the kit. You've got to.
But you have that as a children's entertainer.
Okay.
You know, I did 4 and above, so even if I was doing 10, 11, 12-year-old parties, then you're going to pull out decks and you're not just going to play music off an iPad for kids' parties. So, I loved equipment, I loved DJing.
So a lot of self-taught and a lot of talking to friends.
All self-taught, pretty much. Just had an ear for it. I mean, I was always musical. I played the drums
Yeah.
at a really young age. And it got to a point where I was like grade 6 drums. And I was like, right, do I be a drummer or a DJ? And there was a lot more money in DJing. And
No to pilot, no to drumming.
That's where I went with it. So I always had an ear for beats and music and that sort of thing with the drumming. But I found myself in a really specific market, which was the Jewish and Arab market, and also a lot of corporate stuff. And I think that's just because I followed the money.
Yeah.
And, you know, you have an Arab wedding where they have 400 people. I was there just to entertain kids early on, and then I was like, wow, they spend massive amounts of money on these weddings. And the same with the Jewish market where they have a bar or bat mitzvah. You know, nowadays you can't do a bar or bat mitzvah for less than 30, 40 grand. And they're 13, 12-year-old children. But that's what happens. That's what they do. So I just found myself in this market, and it snowballs, these sort of things. You know, you do one, 4 more people book you. Out of those 4, it's another 4. That's 16 jobs. And I just found myself in that really niche market. I still do a little bit today, but I try and do 1 a month, 2 a month of a bar bat mitzvah. I still
And are these
in that market.
usually day events, like a weekend day event? Or
Yeah, normally weekends, evening, during the day. It can vary, but with a family now and working so bloody hard Monday to Friday, it's quite nice to have your weekends off. Like this Saturday I'm working. I'll be out from 7 a.m. and get back at 12 a.m. We've got a big production going on. So I don't mind not working weekends. So I'm quite picky with what I do now. I can be.
But you still enjoy it enough that obviously you get some money from it, but you're enjoying it as well.
Yeah, and that's really the reason I still do it now.
Yeah.
And 1 or 2 a month. I'll do corporates still, whether that be with silent disco or not. But certainly the bar bat mitzvahs, okay, look, here's my price. Normally they're recommendations or people that had me on their last child, 5, 6 years ago, and we did their bar or bat mitzvah or, outrageous birthday, like sweet 16 sort of stuff. And then, I just try and limit how many of them I do. Otherwise, I'd be out every weekend, and it's not sustainable to do 7 days a week. I've done that. I did that last week, a 7-day week, and I was exhausted on Monday. I think all the team did a 7-day week because of the Euros, and we were just flat out. That makes such a big difference. Events like that with the Euros, I just,
got them in the calendar. So you were living at were you going back to sort of the 20s, early 20s? Were you living at home still with your parents?
Yeah, living at home in Southend-on-Sea by the seaside, and then I moved. I bought my first home at 19 or 20, something like that. Saved up, and I mean I wanted to do it earlier, and I found a house and I loved it. I was 17 or 18 and I'd saved up enough. It was much easier then with a deposit, and house prices were lower, and it was next to like an alleyway, and my parents were like, you're not having it, it's next to an alleyway, it's dangerous, blah blah. And I was so annoyed. I drive past it on my way to the office every day, and I still look and go, I should have bought that because I know what it'd be worth now. But then I waited a couple of years, saved up, silent disco was born, kept putting, a little bit of money away. And then I moved out at 19, 20, around about that time.
So the silent disco, the inception of that was when you were still living at home with your parents?
Yeah.
So tell me about that journey from doing the DJing, so DJing to sort of older crowd and younger crowd. Yeah. And then how did you sort of come across this concept and company?
It tied into the same time, and I was speaking to a business owner a couple of weeks ago, and they were like, I want to start a new business, but I don't want to leave my old business because I'm worried about money, and it's a risk.
I think that's a very common thing
for everyone.
Yeah,
they're like, do I do this? And I knew when I started silent disco, children's entertaining stopped.
Oh, really?
Literally, I said, that's it. I've been doing it years. It's knackering. Doing 10 a week, you're always on the road. It's really unsociable. A lot of my friendships are affected because I'm out earning money. Great, but those relationships when your friends are going out at the weekend and you're working, it's really effective. And I also think my friends some are at uni, And I was like, even now, they don't understand the value of 200 quid. And it really winds me up that they're like, they'll just tap the card. We're in a society now. Tap, 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 tap. Worry about it later. And where I was doing kids' parties, a lot of people paid in cash. So I know the value of pulling out £200 that you've earned, you've been given it in cash, and giving that £200 back out. And nowadays people just like literally tap, tap, tap. So I was saving money, and I could see that. I was like, I can't believe like they're going out and just, you know, just spending so much money on nights out on a weekend. So I was saving and saving. Silent Disco was born. I was in America at the time, and I was at a festival, about 18, 19, and I saw Silent Disco for the first time. I was at this festival. I was pretty intoxicated because it was a holiday, and I was standing at the front leaning on this barrier, and I thought, this is bonkers. This is madness. And they were really bad headphones. I mean, I'm wearing mine now, which is great. I can do a bit of cross promotion, but they were really like plasticky, Chinesey, and I just thought the market I was in, which was really high-end Arab, Jewish, corporate, they would love this. They would absolutely love this. So I came back, and I'd bought stuff from China before, and I knew a few friends that had bought from China, so you can go online. I found a factory, had some samples done. And then literally I reached out to all the weddings and the corporates and was like, look, we're going to be doing Silent Disco. It's in America. I think here it will just...
So it was quite a new thing in the UK at the time?
Yeah. There was only, I think, a couple of companies that were doing it, and they were using, as I said, a very like cheap, plasticky headphone. And I was like, you drop it, it's going to break. Like, it's plastic. So we really wanted to design something that was premium. I'd come from, as I said, at school doing like the sound technician stuff, and I'd studied sound technology at college.
It's like a culmination of like lots of things kind of leading to this point then.
Yeah, so I really wanted to design something that on the inside was really, really well made. But I reached out to all the companies that we had bookings for, and I said, we're going to do Silent Disco, do you want it? And I'd literally booked out, like, I knew the stuff was going to take about 3 months to get here. But I'd sold out like 2-3 months worth of the equipment before it even arrived.
Wow.
And we try and do that now. And I say to any business, if you've got an idea, sell it first before you've got it, because then you've tested the market. You know if there's people want
waiting lists and things like that.
Waiting lists. I mean, like you look at Tesla.
Yeah.
You want I'd love a Cybertruck. You can't get them. There'll be a wait list, and that's how they create demand.
That's good. Isn't it?
Rolex are the perfect example of this. You know, if you want a Rolex, you got to wait a couple of months. A lot of the time, if you want a brand new one, you go on a wait list, and they create this demand. All these top brands, Apple, they're bringing out a new phone. You like share your interest, and then on the day you've got queues the whole way around Westfield, trying to, and it's like the madness. It's the waiting list. So we sold it in advance to buying it.
And just to understand what you sold, were you selling the headphones to people or selling the events to people?
Rental,
okay.
So using a case of a wedding, you've got a band or you've got a DJ. And I saw that when people were eating dinner, all the kids would eat in 5-10 minutes, and then they'd be causing havoc. You know, they're running outside, they're bored.
Yeah.
Now there's endless entertainment for them, but they're bored. So I thought, right, let's do a silent disco while people are eating for the people that have finished eating. So we can do that on the dance floor. It doesn't disturb anyone. Everyone can carry on having, dinner. And that's really the main use case of how it started. And then the snowball effect started. As I said, we had a tiny little office. I called it the Harry Potter cupboard. It was probably smaller than this room. And AP, who's on our cameras, he was one of our first members of staff, so he's been near 10 years now with us. But we were in what I call the Harry Potter cupboard, and there was literally me. I had one person in. I had my grandma's garage at the time with all of our headphones in. And he was there 3 days a week. It was a little dungeon, like a block of garages.
So it was your grandma's garage?
Yeah, it was my grandma's garage.
That was your Harry Potter office?
That was where we had the headphones.
Yeah.
So we were charging, boxing them.
Yeah.
And then in my dad's family business, he had a tiny little, it was literally like under the stairs.
Yeah.
that went upstairs
Brilliant.
to a warehouse. And it was a little empty room, and I was like, that's perfect for us. And that's where we were for 3 years. Literally, and there was like 3 of us, all the chairs are like hitting each other because it was but that's where it started.
Brilliant. And so it sounds like quite a seamless journey. Did you have to spend a lot on the stock? But you'd already sold events up front, so it kind of feels like...
so it was a rental.
Yeah.
So when we first invested, it was about £6,000
to get the
from
headphones.
samples, and that was 200 headphones. That was
Yeah.
the first amount that we bought,
Yeah.
and I thought 200. And my parents at that point thought I was bonkers. They're like, you're going to spend that much? That can go on another deposit, or, save it, invest. And I was like, yeah, it's fine. But they did think I was bonkers at the time. But I knew that we were putting them into events already as rental before that.
That's brilliant. So as a model, it was fairly risk-free-ish. It wasn't like you were taking on a shop and premises and things like that.
Yeah, it was just staff.
Yeah.
And even now, like, I feel the pressure of that their livelihoods are, we're 18 now. And we did a count because we were like, we're going to do an early Christmas party and go to like Thorpe Park. And my assistant was like, how many are there? And then I looked, I was like, there's 18. That's a lot of people.
Yeah. Now it's, I guess, it's more like the setup stage for you is like more of the less risky part. It's more now being an established events business where you need to keep bringing the events in every day.
And it's like some businesses, and I've talked at different business events, like you don't want a business where you start from zero each month, because the cash flow, you're always worrying about it. I mean, I always worry about it now. We don't quite start from zero every month because we have like contracts with, one of our biggest ones at the time was Celebrity Cruises.
Oh, yeah.
Where we did 3 ships, because they all have silent discos on their ships now. Royal Caribbean have silent disco on their ships. But that was one of our main, so we knew they were paying monthly. Yeah. We could go swap out headphones if there was a problem. And Butlins, who we do till today, they're 6 years a client of ours.
Yeah.
But they have, people that I see all the time go, I went to Butlins and had the silent disco. It was the best part of the weekend. Maybe some of your listeners have been to Butlins, but that was, you can't start from zero each month because the stress is just, it's a hard and lonely place to be an entrepreneur. And even now, you try and talk to your wife about struggles or VAT bills. They don't really understand, but it is a lonely place, and that's why I always say, like, talk to other entrepreneurs. I'm very open. If anyone wants to call me or reach out to me on LinkedIn or socials, I'll always give them time, because I had that a little bit. I wish I had it more, to speak to people that have like been there, got the metaphorical t-shirt that will help you not make the mistakes they did. And that's why I think you got to speak to people.
Yeah, and the podcast world is amazing for that, isn't it? Just tapping into all this brilliant insight from different people.
Yeah, so that's where it started, and then we just grew really quickly. We saved up money, we bought our own commercial property. So we moved into there. We needed more staff, we needed more room. It wasn't practical at the time, but you do what you got to do. If I had a home, I would have worked out a garage or whatever, a shed. You just make it happen. But you were saying about like protection, and it's a hard place to be. And an entrepreneur always told me that like your business is the castle, and you want to build moats around your castle to protect it. And I surrounded myself with quite a few entrepreneurs that had a lot of property, and I just thought that's the best way to put moats around your business. If anything happens, we have a property there that if we need it, we have equity in it.
Sort of rather than take on a lease, buy a commercial property.
Yeah. I don't do renting.
Yeah.
It's just something I won't do. So, I mean, we're in a pretty big warehouse now, and we really need a new one. And sort of next door came up for rent, and it would have been perfect because I can just knock through and make it bigger. And the landlord just doesn't want to sell. And I was like, okay, I've not done this before, but what about if we do a lease option where I'll rent it for 2 years, but I want the option to buy it at the end of the 2 years? trying to be creative. No, doesn't want to sell it.
Bye-bye.
But it was worth it if you don't ask. And I've bought a couple of businesses where you have to be creative, whether it's lease finance or vendor finance, where you don't go for a bank and you pay them over a period of time. You've got to be creative with these things. Yeah, but we moved into our first property. We were there. I said if I got 5 years out of it, I'd be happy. We got 3 years out of it because we needed more space.
Wow.
We bought another commercial property and rented that first one out. And we've done that now 4 or 5 times.
So there's a big portion of your company that's a property business then?
Yeah, so that's a bit of a hobby of
Right,
mine.
okay.
And again, like when you surround yourself with other entrepreneurs and that sort of thing, I saw that a lot of these entrepreneurs have property.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very specific that residential doesn't interest me at all. It's commercial, little industrial units, that sort of thing.
Why is that then?
Like little industrial units. So
why is it that you prefer the industrial rather than residential?
I think, I don't want to get too political on this podcast, but I think the government make it, one, really bloody difficult for businesses now.
Mm-hmm.
I call them turnover taxes. And before a company, like an entrepreneur is going to give up their job potentially, give it a go, and try and employ people and build the UK economy. And they say there's about 7,500 businesses in the UK which are at the sort of the top 3% of companies, and that's normally where they're turning over the VAT threshold.
Yeah.
So you've got to think, there's so many businesses that won't even get over 100 grand because they don't want to pay the VAT, etc. Out of those 7,500 businesses, they're obviously the employer of a mass amount of people. And you're actually in like the top 1% if you employ over 250 people. So out of
I didn't realise there was only 7,500 or so.
that are over that amount.
Wow.
But if you think about companies that have over 250 people, like a friend of mine has 1,300 staff over 5 companies. So out of that 7,500, if you think they're corporations with multiple companies under their banner, I reckon there's 2,000 companies in the UK that actually employ over 250 people. It's really low figures. So when people want to give it a go and make something of it, and then the government go, before you've even made a profit, we're going to tax you on turnover. And my belief is you should be taxed on profit, not turnover. Once you've made a profit and you've made some money, okay, tax you because you've made a profit. And I think that's a huge problem.
And just to be really clear on the tax bit, what is it that's taxed when you get a revenue in?
So your revenue is taxed.
Right.
Straight away.
So
you've got
the VAT.
The VAT is my biggest nightmare. And I think that's because, I know it's because we're a rental business. So I look at my father's business that was retail, and he's buying in, for example, some stock at £10, and he's paying 20% VAT to buy that item. When he sells that item, he's got to charge 20%. So it offsets the cost. Okay, if you've got £1,000 worth of sales, you might have £800, of purchases, and it offsets.
Got you.
The problem with us is we're rental, and once we've bought the equipment, we can rent that for 2, 3, 5. Now some of our kit still goes out 10 years later. So our sales VAT is like the biggest killer for us. We don't have huge amount of sales. Okay, we have courier and like couriers that we use electricity, but it doesn't even come close. So like I used the last few weeks because I'm still a bit annoyed about it. And that's like we've had a really good couple of months. It's our busiest time of year, summer. We've just had the Euros. The Euros will make us another 20-25 grand because of all the screens that we do. And then the VAT man comes knocking and goes, you've had a really good quarter. Not many sales there. Here's an £80,000 VAT bill.
Wow.
And entrepreneurs will think this. You've just worked your socks off, and that's a polite word. You've really worked your socks off for 2 months. You've done a 7-day week, sometimes 40 hours over a weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. and then you got to give it away in VAT. And some people say, oh, it's not your money because you've had to charge VAT, but we've got nothing to offset it against, really.
Yeah.
Um,
So they're benefiting from your good business model in a way, aren't they? Yeah.
And I've worked out at one point, there was a business that I was involved in, and out of their profit, for every pound that they took, they only kept 45% of that. So if they earn £1, 55p are going to the government, and that 45p, remember, that's then staff, that's operating costs before they've even got there. For every pound,
tough. Yeah.
55p. And I think turnover taxes, I know we've got a new government now. I hope they don't put VAT up. I hope they bring it down. And I don't like to moan, but like COVID, our industry, and you've had Bouncy Castle Company come on before. Yeah. That's event hire. Yeah. Leisure and hospitality, so play centres and zoos and visitor attractions, they all benefited from huge VAT relief, business rate relief during COVID. The event industry were completely left out to dry. We didn't get anything.
They'd just forgotten, or they hadn't thought about you guys, or they just...
Like, my view is our business is leisure and hospitality. We supply to leisure venues, we supply to hospitality companies that are putting on events. And I argued it, but because we're event rental, and it'd be the same for some of the other listeners that may be in our industry, we didn't get anything. And that was really, really tough, that some of these are still paying 5-10% VAT. I think leisure and hospitality is still 5%. So
you didn't get the fortunate part of
COVID.
No.
We slipped through every net in that respect, and that was a real tough time, really tough time. I think in that year we lost about £500,000 just straight away in terms of cancellations. In the first lockdown, that was tough mentally.
Yeah. Was that the hardest part of the whole journey so far, do you think, for you?
Looking back now, I'm like, no, because I did some work in the garden, spent time with my wife, and but looking back, no. But at the time, it was the uncertainty. You didn't know how quick it was going to recover. You didn't know what was going to happen next week, and it was the uncertainty. But it was the hardest time in terms of mental health. Staffing that you rely on you for their livelihood, and I still feel a huge responsibility for all the staff that we have. And at the time, I had some issues with staff. One, that's the biggest problem for any business owner is staffing. But one left, and it cost a lot of money to exit them out of the business. And on top of the COVID, that was really hard to deal with. But I always knew that you pivot, and I did some other stuff in COVID to keep the cash flow coming. An entrepreneur I referenced earlier always says, to keep the business going, you need to keep the cash flowing. And that's literally what I did in COVID. I pivoted with a few other businesses. Cinema High was really popular, but I would definitely say that was the toughest time on mental health for me. And I'm a pretty strong person and pretty resilient. But the uncertainty,
and the
I've
dramatic
got mortgages, we've got commercial property at that point, and it was just like, if it all comes crashing down, I'm screwed here. Yeah. So you do have to pivot, and it took a few weeks to go, right, what can we do to bring in cash? And we did some really interesting random businesses.
What did you do? What sort of things did you adapt to?
The first one was we opened a Christmas shop online.
Right.
Because people love all that toot for Christmas, and they couldn't spend any money going out. So I knew a couple of suppliers that we bought party goods from, and they did a huge Christmas range. So I had a Shopify store. I knew a bit of retail from my father, and I bought loads of the Christmas toot, balls, tinsel,
all right, so
all of the toot.
Literally nothing to do with silent disco.
No, just Christmas stuff. Silent disco at that point, we could do 6 headphones at home in a garden or a cinema, but 100 quid a booking is not gonna, pay the bills. So we did the Christmas shop. That was great. That brought in that Christmas like 40k worth of turnover. So I was like, brilliant. That goes into the pot, keeps us going. And then for a couple of corporate clients, we did sort of bespoke DJ booths for events where we used perspex. So I had a perspex supplier, like plastic sheeting, and you saw all these guards in shops and counters where it was like the clear perspex screens with the little hole in it. You pass your money. So I said to him, how much have you got? And he said 2 pallets worth of perspex left. I said, I'll take them. And then I had someone that cut them all into the shapes. As I said, all the ones that went into shops. Another Shopify store, set that up in a night,
Wow.
5-6 hours work, get a store together. Shopify, I mean, it's amazing. It makes it so easy for people. And we were selling the sneeze screens of what they were called at the time to stop shop. So again, that probably generated 60-80k turnover.
Wow.
Out of those,
Yeah.
each sheet we could get about 4 screens. So you do, maybe 60 quid each or something.
Are you quite like au fait and skilled on like just internet marketing and everything like that then with all your businesses? Because even you say Shopify, but I've dabbled in it and put some shoes online. And people haven't flooded to buy that. Like, how did you?
We're in technology in terms of like headphones being the best they can. So like computers are fine. I was DJing, like I got away from records and was using digital. Like loads of DJs were like, oh, we want to carry on using CDs. I was like, no, let's go laptop. Like so much easier. And now everyone uses a laptop to DJ, or even a USB stick.
Yeah.
Like no one uses.
It kind of
CDs.
loses a bit of the kind of coolness.
But at the time, like no one wanted to change, and I was like, you've got to innovate.
Yeah.
If you don't innovate, you evaporate.
So you've got that in you of like
what,
picking up the latest technology, ways of doing things.
So I mean, I'm quite handy anyway. Like if something needs fixing, AP will tell you. Like literally this week, putting out metaphorical fires and in the office and fixing stuff rather than bringing someone in like a plumber. I'm like, I can do that, and I'll save myself like 200 quid and being frugal, and then I can spend that 200 quid on more headphones. So I was always quite handy, like at the start, like entrepreneurs, whether it's like a Wix website or a WordPress, but you go on Wix or even Google do it now, and like AI builds your website. You tell it what you want you to do. But for retail, like Shopify is amazing, and there's templates. You just got to upload the pictures. Like it's so easy, in my opinion, to make a Shopify website. Anyone can do it now. So it didn't really bother me creating that like that.
And then
time.
it's that sort of eye for what's needed at that time. So the perspex was needed at that time.
It was needed.
And so if you get a shop front of what's needed, what people need, they come with a bit of optimization. And it was
short-lived, like, we knew we could only get so much of it. Again, I was importing from China, so I bought like face masks and aprons. I mean, I threw about 2,000 aprons away. We've had them for 4 years, but everything was so expensive to get it in that it'd be impossible. Like, literally, you'd have to give it away now. And we did do that. We gave it a little bit away. I mean, we created an online pet shop because I've got a dog, and I was like, all right, let's do all the treats and toys.
Right, and I was thinking animals
Shopify.
as well. Yeah.
Terrible. Didn't make any money.
Right, okay.
Like,
okay.
literally.
Oh, no, it's good to hear. It's
2 months later, I was like, right, that one didn't work. But by that point,
So
we were sort of getting back on our feet, and now we was like, I said to the team, right, now we've got to make up for lost time. We've got to innovate. And people wanted to get back and party. I mean, like, you look at the Eat Out to Help Out, people were desperate to go back out for a meal. People were desperate to go away again. I think the airline industry today is busier than it was like pre-COVID. They're shocked. The owner of Heathrow, I can't remember his name, how quick it's come back. So stuff started coming back in, and people wanted to celebrate. Brits love a party.
Yeah.
Any excuse for a party, we love.
Just going back to Silent Disco, it's on my bucket list. I haven't ever
You've never
been
done
to
one?
No.
Okay.
What do you think is the magic about it? Like, what do you think captures people's kind of...
For me, I think it's a source of entertainment. You know, whether that's the same as a band, DJ, whatever, it's a source of entertainment. It's super affordable for you to do. You know, you could have one here in the studio, like 10 people, 125 quid. You've got it all weekend.
Yeah.
You'll have a blast. But for me, I think the key was that when you go to a party, you got to listen to the same DJ all night. And you don't like the song, then you go outside or you sit down and not everyone wants to hear the same music. And with DJs, there's like an ego part, like everyone needs to listen to me sort of thing. Silent disco gives people a choice. You know, on our headphones, we've got 3 channels of music, or we can go up to 6 channels of music. That's mainly corporates and conferences, but you can do 6 channels. So now you've got choice. What's your favourite genre or artist?
Me.
Yeah, I'll put you on the spot.
I love a bit of Afrobeat myself.
Okay, great. So you could have Afrobeats on one channel as a
Yeah.
genre. On the second channel, you could have cheese, and everyone loves cheese.
And you're absolutely right, because there's the amount of arguments I've had with friends at nightclubs where they want to go to that room and I want to go to that room. Well,
exactly.
yeah.
So now you're
Back in the
all
day.
in one room.
Yeah.
You got a switch on your headphone, and you can switch to a genre or song that you want to listen to. If you don't like that song, just switch on the headphone to a different channel, and now you're listening to something
But you can still
like.
talk to each other as well.
So people say this to me: how can I talk to someone if I've got headphones
I
on?
mean,
I say,
we have headphones on right
we've
now.
got
don't we?
microphones on. But I say, take off your headphones. You don't have to shout over the music. You don't have to scream into your friend's ear. You can take off your headphone and have a conversation. And that's it.
I've got to try this out.
You can have one ear on, like I'll have one ear on and be able to have a conversation with you. I can still hear the music and I can hear. But people say that to me. I'm like, take your headphone off. You're not shouting over a really loud DJ who, you know, the older people go, oh, that's a bit loud, the DJ tonight. And have a conversation. And that gives people choice. They can turn it down, they can turn it up, they can have a blast on one. But I do think that once people put on the headphones, whatever headphones, you forget where you are. And you are in your own little world, singing. And even now I take off the headphones at an event and I'm like, I still laugh because people are in their own little world, singing like they're in the shower at home, not realising there's another 100 people around them doing the same.
I think the silent disco actual venue would be cool.
That would be good.
Yeah.
I mean, we tried to do it at the Orbit in Stratford, in the Olympic Park, the
Yes.
spirally,
Yeah.
a long time ago. But you know what? Our model, and any business that we try and create now, it has to fit into our model, which is we ship it out, we ship it back. It's a do-it-yourself package, but it's super simple.
Yeah.
And that's the idea. I mean, like, I just plugged in these headphones using silent disco. It's like 30 seconds. How karaoke we'd spent, you know, that's fairly new within the last couple of years.
Oh yeah. So yeah, tell us about sort of the evolution from the silent disco company, which was the first one, to the next few businesses. And the other thing I'd love to ask as well is a couple of these big corporate wins that you got, and how did you get them? Like you said, celebrity cruises. Love to hear some stories about, you know, when you got one of those and you're like, yes.
Let's start with silent disco, because I think that, you know, that's the core business and what, you know, I'm still addicted to. That's why I'm wearing the headphones now. But they came very, very early on. We did cold calling, but people like celebrity cruises, you know, because you're in the lead generation industry as well. To get to the right people in that organisation, like LinkedIn wasn't so big then. Like, I hate Linky Dink anyway. I'm getting better at it, but our team manage. I call it Linky Dink. I don't know why. But at that time, like, to get to the right person in that organisation was really difficult. So early on, we did a bit of cold calling, but very, very quickly it was all inbound calls. We barely do any outbound.
Brilliant.
I mean, our content that we put out there will bring in lead generation as well. But it was all inbound. So like Google Ads is my best friend. I give a lot of money to Mr. Google. I think now our spend is in excess of 20k a month.
Wow.
On Google Ad spend.
Yeah.
But that generates, I would say, 80% of
Right.
new leads. We have a lot of returning customers, and then
And then all the words around silent disco, or are they around events and parties?
Mainly silent disco.
Yeah.
But we've also brand's the most important thing, and to try and build a brand is the hardest part of a business. But I believe that we've built a really fantastic brand. I think the hardest thing, the most important thing about building a brand is customer service.
Mm-hmm.
And that ethos actually comes from my father and his family business. It was retail, it was very family run. And the customer service there, really, I put into silent disco, which is old fashioned customer service. If you want to come in and have a chat, if you want to pick up the phone, there's always somebody there to help you. And that definitely came from, that experience of customer service. So now it's probably our main focus. Our operations manager that's his favourite thing, customer service. He's like, I'm going to give a credit or a refund to this customer. It wasn't quite right. And I'm like, really? But
Yeah.
it works, and
That's
he's
good.
had a real positive impact. And you look at Google and Facebook, the reviews, there's more than 1,000 now. They're all 5-star. It's very, very rare. You still get the odd person.
Yeah, you can't avoid
You
that.
can't stop that. But generally, you look at our reviews and they're all 5-star, and that's the most important thing for me about building a brand is customer service. And you've got, when we first started, there were 2 other companies. Now there's probably 30. And only this week, I was dealing with our lawyer. A new one has popped up. Very, very similar name, offering confusion to customers. And businesses will have this. Once you start doing well, people will copy. And I don't mind if people copy. There's enough work, in my opinion, for everybody. But be unique. Have your own brand, your own name, your own design. Don't completely copy it and imitate it, because it's annoying, first and foremost. And it's expensive. Our lawyer's going to have to deal with that. I'm all about people creating their own business, but when they copy it, and you get that with Airbnb is a great example. Airbnb are an amazing company, and then you've got Verbo, VRBO, who have copied it, and it's like some of their design is very, very similar. They've actually changed it. When they first launched it was almost identical, and there was a legal dispute. But when you've got a successful business, or someone thinks it's successful, they will copy it. And that goes back to building moats around the business.
Yeah.
We're going to protect our castle, and that's the castle. Where we went into other stuff was cinema. Mm-hmm. We wanted another product at home cinema. And AP actually, who's in the room now, say hello. Hello. There we go. He worked with me really closely on cinema, and I was like, right, we want to design this. We went through loads of prototypes. And then we came up with this inflatable, almost like a bounce castle, that fits in a box. Take it out, plug it in, it blows up. It's a giant screen.
I mean, I now you have it and you're saying it. I'm like, why didn't anyone else think of that? It's put it in the garden, summer night. Yeah. Exactly.
So projector, we do a speaker, or you can do it with headphones, and then you don't annoy the neighbours. So they all tie into each other.
Yeah.
Then we did the flash band. So what's really important, and I've said this on another podcast, is go to trade shows to find new products, but not in this country.
Right.
If something's in this country, then it's already here.
Good.
If you want to be unique, you got to go elsewhere. And America is very, very good, because they have the most wacky ideas, to be honest. So I used to go every November to a show in Orlando. So I used to go in and out 4 days, go to the show, and I did that for about 4 or 5 years. And we had a VR simulator, so we got into VR a little bit. I didn't really like it, and luckily I sold that business just before COVID struck. It was like January, and we sold that business. But that was like VR. That came from America,
right?
So like where you sit in, you put goggles, and you're on a roller coaster sort of.
And I guess it's a little bit journey.
And it was so labour intensive. Like, you need a big van, you need 2 staff. It's heavy. It's not the model that we love, which is ship it out, ship it in.
So with your silent disco events, you can do you need a person to drop it off still, or could you courier it and just leave
Most
it?
of what we do is courier.
Yeah.
So again, this being our busiest time, we're sending over 200 hires a week currently.
Wow.
During the summer months. So we ship them out with a courier, whether that's APC or DHL, DPD, whoever it might be. We ship it out on a Thursday, gets delivered Friday. You have a great weekend, collects Monday, back to us on Tuesday. And then we've got 2.5 days, 3 days to turn it around again.
Great.
Back out. We do a lot of other ones where they want a staff member, like corporates, and we need to hand out the headphones. Obviously, we do the event packages where they're coming with DJs, maybe 3 DJs for the 3 different channels. You know, it goes on and on. But I would say 70% of what we do even still is dry hire, where it's do it yourself. That's the model that we know and we love.
Yeah.
And I talked about the Euros before, like the amount of calls for cinema screens. I mean, we have about 50 of them, which doesn't sound a lot, but they're quite big.
Yeah, and this is in your warehouse in Southend or in Essex somewhere.
Yeah, and the screens just went like literally within. Once we got through from the semi-final to the final, and let's not talk about it too much because we're still in mourning, I think. But all the screens literally went out. So
and this is all Google. This is all people searching on Google. Getting amazing.
Yeah. Or socials or through the content marketing that we do. So the cinema evolved. Now we do the drive-in cinemas, the big inflatable screens.
So is this more for like a kind of bigger entity?
Yeah, like drive-in cinemas. That's something else that kept us alive during COVID, really.
Oh,
that was the only thing you could do is sit in your car and go to a drive-in cinema. So we did a lot of them. That kept us
And are they the client base there more sort of like a bigger venue or something, not necessarily
a
like
venue,
a car park
someone who had some land.
Yeah.
Like we did one in a Tesco car park because they just wanted to do something back. So they're completely varied, our customer base. Or it just might be someone like you that goes, I need to earn some money. I'm gonna
put it on in my garden.
Get a car park or you're opposite a park. Can I get the council to rent me that for the evening? And then you'd call us and put in the drive-in cinema. It's quite an easy model to do a drive-in cinema. Now you get a lot of the themed events where they're like properly themed. So we have the big outdoor screens. We've recently done sort of LED screens. So the problem with the inflatables is you can only do it when it's dark because it's projection based. Now we have giant LED screens where you can do them during the day. So again,
and was this sort of keeping an eye out on what was going on, going to the US and things like that, finding these suppliers?
I think people just ask for it.
Love this.
In June, I don't want to start a cinema at 10 o'clock at night. And that's what you would have to do because it doesn't get dark till 10 o'clock. And it's projection.
I think that's kind of an important point, isn't it? If someone's asking for it, there potentially is a business there.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we get that now. So we made, I mean, that LED screen was about 100 grand. It was a lot. The one that we have.
You made it or you sourced it?
No, we bought it. We sourced it. Okay. There was actually another company that I knew very well, and I said, if you ever want to sell it, let me know. And I probably planted that seed for over 2 years, and then he called me and went, I'm thinking about selling it because we're doing other stuff now. And I went, I'll have it. But we had to buy a vehicle to tow it, so it was about 100 grand, and I was like, that's a big risk.
Yeah.
I don't mind spending that on headphones now. But on something brand new, but we knew there was a call. The team always said to me, we
People
will be able to sell it.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Euros, fantastic. The World Cup, we're busy with it. There is 4 months of the year that it sits in the warehouse because over winter, no one's going to need an outdoor screen. And that we bought basically second hand, and it was still that amount of money.
Wow.
We do a lot in China. So we've just ordered 2 more trailers, slightly smaller, but it's half the price when you order direct from China and not Europe.
Have you been to China before?
Yeah, so I mean we're zigzagging topics, but we'll go we went to America, we found those products, our flash bands, which are the LED light up wristbands, they came from America, and we still do that today. So I'll give an example of Taylor Swift concert. Everyone's wearing the light up wristbands at the concert. Loads of people do that now. Coldplay were the ones that sort of set the tone with that. So we do them, but on a smaller scale for your wedding or whatever it might be. But then you want to go to China. And we've literally just booked to go in February AP is going to come and film loads of stuff, and we're going to go to all of our factories that we deal with, and we'll put it all up online, because I think people...
Yeah, it's like another world, isn't it? Well, it's it's a mystery to many of us.
And it's, you know what, I was there last year, and I really like it there. And I met a lot of expats who had moved, and I'm like, you know, a lot of people have this conception of China, like they control you, and that is true to a degree. Like on every traffic light, there's a camera that takes a picture of you. Like I was just seeing like speed camera flashes, like constantly. It was like a strobe light, and I said, "What is that?" And they were like, "Oh, every traffic light there's a camera tracking you, so they know, like especially COVID, where you are, where you've been."
Yeah.
And they literally know where you've been. So in COVID, if someone left the town, they would get a fine because they know that you've driven somewhere else.
That doesn't sound that fun.
It's not, but there's barely any crime.
Yeah.
What they've grown an economy, and I don't advocate for this stuff, but they have like a trade show. If I want to go and trade show at the Excel, it's going to cost me 20 grand by the time I've finished. In China, whatever you export, this is regardless, whatever you export out the country, you get 1 or 3%, I can't quite remember, 1 or 3% kickback from the government. That's amazing. Like
so
that's
giving you cash back.
They'll give you cash. If you export, they'll give you 1 or 3% of your export value back, whether that's off your tax bill, I don't quite know. But there's incentives to go and do a trade show, because if you export, you will get a kickback from the government, and that's how they've grown to be a huge economy.
Yeah.
But it's honestly, it's a great place, and I really enjoyed my time there. It is a bit mad because no one speaks any English. Like they communicate, communication's
how
really
did you manage
difficult.
that? Like you just get by?
I found through a recommendation, I knew someone else that goes to China an awful lot, and he said use this agent. They're like a sourcing agent, and they will look after you. And I went to them, and they charged a good couple of £1,000, but they picked me up from the airport, took me to the hotel. Every meal was included within the fee. The hotel was included, and then I had someone with me for 7 days, taking me to where I needed to go and translating.
Yeah.
Best money I've ever spent. And I've recommended this company.
Yeah.
And there are lots of companies that do that,
but just
agents,
you know,
but
many
they are
people
with you.
Yeah, wouldn't be aware of this.
So you're not on your own, because it is like you get there and you're like, where am I, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I said to AP, we were talking about our trip in February, and I was like, literally, we need to go from Guangdong, which is where we'll be staying, to the Canton Fair, which is the most famous trade fair. They do 3 a year, 2 a year. And I was like, it's like this far on the map, but it's like 3.5 hour journey in a car. Or if we want to go to Ningbo, where all of our cases and stuff is made, again, it's like it's not very far on a map. It's a 4 hour flight from where we are, so it is just vast.
Yeah.
It is like you're going a tiny bit on the map, tiny, and it takes you 3 hours. But the factories are like really interesting. They look like a block of flats. Like literally, I feel like I'm in a block of flats in London, and you go in and the whole floor is a factory for this company. So I went last year. We did Canton Fair. I really recommend that. We're going to go in February, and we're going to be a bit more specific with... We will go to the fair, and this fair is like humongous. I totally underrate. People said it was big. You need like 4 days there, and I was like, no, I'll get round in 2 days. It's fine. And then you realise that each hall has 4 halls within it on 4 different levels. So I worked out there's actually 80 expo halls to get round. And these expo halls are the size of the Excel. It's like a village. To get to the next sort of zone, you have to get a golf buggy and buses.
We don't know anything like that here then in the UK.
It's just
There's nothing
vast.
like that, yeah.
But I've really try and get out to more shows. Yes, all right, it's a couple of grand, but it is the best place. You get better prices. Go to the factory. They treat you, you know, like royalty, because you've made the effort. You've made the effort to come out. And we're going to go see our new trailer company that make all of our LED screens. We'll go to our headphone factory. We have all of our cables made. We have even like tape, like gaffer tape, that we tape the floors with. We do so many, like glow sticks. We buy 50,000 glow. So we'll go to all those factories and they're really spread out. So it's like, it's relentless that week in China. But we can go there and go, one, we can negotiate better prices. Get out on a plane. Go to the factories. I tell everybody this. Like, I wish I did it 6-7 years ago. And I've only done it, the first time in China was last year, and I've been twice. We're going next February. But you get better prices, and you get better payment terms. Like, most people want 50% up front, 50% when you ship the items. Now we pay 20-30% up front.
Yeah.
Our headphone supplier is brilliant. They've just shipped some stuff to us this week. The rest of the stuff isn't going to be ready till middle of August. I went, oh, do you want me to pay for the stuff that you've just sent in? Nah, don't worry, we'll just pay at the end. You build that relationship. They know me. I've been there. We talk on WeChat, which is like the equivalent of WhatsApp. Again, it's all controlled by the government. Yeah. But go there. You've got to meet them. It's really difficult. You're trying to run a business. Time is hard. And there's a couple in America. There's one in Vegas. Oh, I'd love to go back to. I love Vegas.
It's like be careful at the casinos.
Yeah. It's like Disneyland for adults, Vegas. But they do some really good shows there. There's one in Dubai, and we opened in Dubai last October. So I like going to Dubai now. And there's a show there. But it's time. You got to leave your family, leave the business. All right, we have a really good team, and it's expensive. And I get that for business owners, but if there's one thing I would go, if you've got a supplier or you're trying to do a product that's everything pretty much comes from China or India or even Turkey, just get on a plane. It's a couple of grand, but that will save you potentially tens of thousands of pounds over the next 5-10 years if you get on a plane and go and see them.
It sounds like you, on the supply side, you are there, and also on the customer side, you're still doing your event on a Saturday in the bar mitzvah. So it's like it's being in person everywhere, being with. It's a tough schedule. Yeah. My wife's very understanding. And actually, we could talk. I could listen for about. You've got so much to impart. But you've also just become relatively recently a father, haven't you? And I just wondered, like on the human side, like how are you balancing that now with how many staff do you have now? 18?
18
and 4 or 5 businesses, and now becoming a dad. Has it changed your perspective on things at all?
The most single thing that changed my perspective, and I think for a lot of people, and I refer back to COVID, because that's where I was working 7-day weeks, and a lot of entrepreneurs will be working stupid hours, 7-day weeks, and COVID put that into perspective, that you saw young people, loved ones pass away around you, and I think I'm at an age where now mothers and fathers are start to pass as well, and that really made me realise that life is short. Yes, we can create a legacy and a business, but we all end up in that wooden box at some point, as deep as that is. Yeah. So we should have actually got married in August, and we had lockdown. So we postponed our wedding by 2 years. And then it was like, do you want to put your life on hold, or do we go for try for a child? So she's 2.5 now. And then we had to go through IVF as well, which was done sort of mid-COVID. So she was actually...
Tough time.
Yeah, IVF is tough. And I've been on the male fertility podcast. I think that's coming out in a few months, because it was actually myself that was the issue, and normally it's the woman that's the issue with IVF. And I don't think that gets talked about enough. But that's for a different podcast. But IVF is tough. But our beautiful girl was born. 3 months later, we got married. And there's a big responsibility for business to make sure that she is looked after. And I think, you've got a child as well, like that they become your world. And it is hard to balance. And I think, as I said, like I'm working Saturday, and I know I'm going to miss that valuable time with her. And that's why I try and limit the amount of weekend work that I do. I still will work weekends, but I do try and make up for it elsewhere. But you are constantly thinking about that and the legacy that you want to have for them, and what protection and moats around the business I make for her or any future child. You never know. But she's great. I actually did a silent disco at her nursery last week.
Oh, we are.
They said, they said any parents that can bring their work into nursery would be great. So obviously, being the entertainer I am, I brought in some headphones, and she experienced her first silent disco at 2.5. Got some great pictures. She loved it.
Oh, wow.
And now she says, Dada, nursery, headphone, coming. And yeah, she's definitely a partier.
You're in there once a month on a Friday.
I don't have time, but it was good. But I try and spend as much time. It is difficult. It's a balance between all the businesses. But the most important thing is a team.
Yeah.
And that's taken me near 10 years, will be 10 years at the end of this year, to build a team around you that you can rely on, that are, I call them like 9s and 10s. You know, they've got to be firing on 90 to 100%. Otherwise, others will leave if people don't pull their weight. And building a team is the hardest thing. Hire slow, fire fast. It's something I've said before. Like, if people are becoming a problem in the business or causing you've got to get rid of them fast, because if you don't and you let it fester, other people will leave because of that person. And I've spoken about this a lot on podcasts about like staffing. It is the hardest thing. It's the one thing that causes me the most stress. Just when you think you've got it perfect, someone leaves, and then you've got to go through it all again and recruit and train. But our team are brilliant. I still don't think we're there in terms of my vision of the team. Okay. I still think there's work to be done, but I think I'll always think that.
Well, I was just sort of to reflect and then look at the future. Like, what's driving you, and what's going to be this vision that you get to? And I hear it on Stephen Bartlett's podcast, because he's always saying, what am I doing? Where am I going? I'm a workaholic, but what is it? What have I done when I've made it? I'm a millionaire. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. Like, and he hasn't answered. I don't think he's answered that question.
No, I mean, entrepreneurship is an addiction. There's no two ways about it. We're not all there in the head, really, because who wants to go through the hassle? I do think sometimes, would a 9-to-5 job be easier? And it would, but it is an addiction. My view is that you have to build a business to sell. Mm-hmm. Even if I've got no intention of selling it, I am building that business to sell. And that discipline, that mindset is the best thing you can have as a business owner, because, you know, always start with the end in mind. And I have an end in mind. When I get to that end, I will probably push that even further and go, right, now this is the next end in mind. That's okay. But you've got to have an end in mind and build a business to sell, even if you have no intention of selling it. For me, the most valuable thing when we've looked at businesses to buy is the team, the database. And I've looked at businesses where I'm not so keen, but the team are amazingly talented. I'm like, I just want that team. So do I buy the business to get that team? Is a really interesting way. But I think we're not there yet. I don't know if we'll ever be there, but I know the milestones that I want to get to in terms of value of the group of businesses, the value or the amount of commercial properties around us that I know when I get to a certain age, and I know what that age is, I won't disclose that, that I've built something to sell, and I have the option then, right, do I put in a management? Does a child want to take it over? Or do I sell it and be okay, and the family be okay, and children be okay?
Yeah, pretty sort of set on your... And now, what do you spend your time doing? Is it about looking for other businesses? No, you're also going to China. No, you're just doing... Are you still doing, like, everything?
In the business?
Yeah, in the business.
I still spend a little bit longer than I should on operations. And business owners should spend 80% on sales and marketing, 20% on operations. Most business owners spend 80% on operations and only 20% getting new customers and sales. You got to flip that mindset. Again, another entrepreneur similar to like Stephen, like that's their mindset, and I've adopted that mindset that you got to flip that. So I now spend, I would say, 60 to 70, not as much as I want to, on sales and marketing, whether that's content, taking time out of the office to come and speak to you and other podcasts, or networking or keynotes. I really enjoy doing, especially at universities and colleges. I really enjoy speaking at them when kids don't know what they want to do, and I've got a lot of friends that still don't know what they want to do.
So much better than a careers service that we had like 25 years ago.
But I was not good at school. I only went to college to please my parents. I would have stopped at 16 and gone straight to work, but they said you need a backup just in case. So I did do that, but I hated it. But I did enjoy school. I was bullied quite badly at school, so when I speak at schools, I share that story, and I think that's really powerful to say, even if you don't know what you want to do, or you know what you want to do and you're not sure how to do it, I enjoy speaking at them. But yeah, go back to that. Spend 80% of your time on sales and marketing and 20% on operations. So now it's me, and I say our business owners, it's really easy to hire, or they think it's easier to hire a salesperson or a business dev person that will cold call all day, and they'll do the operations, where I'm like, no, I will get someone to charge the headphones, to answer the emails. My assistant is fantastic, Lauren, she's brilliant. I should have had her years earlier because she saves me a lot of time. But I'm on the calls. I'm trying to get new business on LinkedIn, as I call it, on LinkedIn and social. I need to bring in more business, and then the operation guys will handle that and make sure they're served with the best customer service possible. So yes, I do try and I try and go to these trade shows, but I do try and spend 70 to 80% of my week on sales and marketing, and that might be improvements with our social media manager, or improvement in our processes, which will generate more sales. So there's like a bit of a crossover, but like we're looking at all of our SMS messages, because SMS, like the open rate of an SMS compared to an email is 50%. We get 50% open rate on an SMS marketing. Yeah. On an email, it's like 1-2% is the norm.
Especially recently,
because everyone sends an email.
Yeah.
Chunky mail is a great thing to use. I want to use it more, and I think you love a bit of chunky mail as well.
So maybe it's a chocolate-shaped headphones or something.
Yeah. Oh, you've given me an idea now. Okay.
I mean, there's so many tips for someone who's already running their business, but someone who might want to start as well. Like just the rental model is I think it's a pretty good one for low risk. Starting small. I sort of tend to finish it off with a question, but you didn't leave a corporate job. You didn't, but you did give up the pilot dream. So I'm wondering, has it all been worth it?
It's been worth it. And I think maybe in a few years, if I've got the guts. Now children, that really affects flying, because I don't trust myself a little bit in a plane. But that can give me the opportunity that if I wanted to go and fly a plane in 10, 15 years' time, I could probably go and do that and learn to do that.
Yeah.
So that dream could still be a reality, or just go on lots of holidays and then you go on an aeroplane. But no, it has been worth it. That I'm very, 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 very lucky with the team that I have, and the support that I get from them. And I say lucky, it's hard work creating a business. And I think if you work hard, you'll make a success of it, whatever industry you're in. Hard work really does pay off. Get an idea, go with it, and you'll be a success.
Brilliant. Thank you, Toby.
Pleasure.
It's been lovely to hear your story, and I mean, you've given so much advice. Is there a sort of parting word of advice for someone wanting to set up a business?
I think relaying what I just said is, if you've got an idea, test the market. That's the best thing you can do. Test the market first and go with it. Get in touch if you want any advice. I always give time. I'm not like Stephen Bartlett that charges like £1 million for some consultancy.
And how can people get in touch with you?
So we're on socials. Toby Burns, the Eventrepreneur. Thank you for saying that right at the beginning as well, because a lot of people, it's a bit of a tongue twister. The Eventrepreneur, Toby Burns, LinkedIn, all the social channels, and yeah, get in touch, and our team will certainly help out any way we can.
Brilliant. Thank you, Toby. Lovely to meet you.
And you.